Thank you for tuning in to another episode of my Veterans to Success podcast. You probably know by now, my mission is to help 1 million veterans and entrepreneur business owners achieve the dreams, goals, and aspirations they deserve. That is why I created the Veterans to Success podcast, because I get to interview guys, men and women, who want to share their fascinating stories with you about their time before, during and after their time in the military, so you can benefit and overcome your challenges. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be mesmerized, astounded, and entertained. Hello and welcome to another edition of the podcast. And today we have Lou O'Connell with me, MBE no less. And what a great conversation. We've had several conversations. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Great. And yes, so we've had a really interesting chat about the military, how it treats people, and what help is available. And one of the things I want to bring through is your skill, knowledge, and wisdom in what you do, what you did in the military, and now what you do in your time out of the military. Before that, though, I mean, because I'd like to get an idea of what makes Lou O'Connell, right? So tell me a little bit about your time before the military.
Okay. Well, born in Liverpool.
Yeah.
Back in a long time ago, 1977, and all my family are from Southern Ireland. So I think a little bit later we moved back to Ireland for a couple of years. So we spent about 4 years in Ireland. Then came back to Liverpool, and my dad's a labourer, so I think there was job shortages and stuff back in the 70s and 80s. So came back to Liverpool. And then, so I basically spent my time and grew up in Liverpool until 19 before I joined the army. I think, it's kind of like, how do you lead into this bit? It was a tough old 19 years, if I'm honest. So while we were living in Ireland, my older brother, who's just about turned 7, was unfortunately killed by a car crossing the road. And then when I was 13, my mum died in her sleep suddenly. So lots of, I suppose, lots of childhood bereavements, cousins have died, grandparents have died. So stuff that you don't really expect a young person to experience. But, looking back now, if I'm honest, it's kind of led me on the path that I've come to and to the place where I am now. When Mum died, the adults thought it'd be really good for me to get involved in some kind of hobbies and stuff. And at the time, I was doing martial arts, so that was already going on, and I was loving that. And then one of the family friends was an adult instructor in the Army Cadet Force.
Right.
So they thought it'd be a good idea for me to join the ACF up there in Liverpool. And I've got to say, that was the absolute making of me. And that's what led me into a military career, because I've got no military apart from back in the war. There's no military connections at all in my family. So, yeah.
Wow, brilliant. Thank you. So thank you for sharing that the cadets was your bridge, I suppose, into the military. And that must have been really tough, a tough period for you with losing your brother and then your mum at such a young age as well. You were 2.5 when you lost your brother, were you?
Yeah, 2.5. So I don't remember my brother. And now the days are going on, I hardly remember my mum. But I think obviously that was to kind of to grow up with bereaved parents, because they were only in their mid-20s when Paul, my brother, died. So so they were only young.
Yeah.
To grow up with them and them having to kind of bring up a toddler, and then moving to England and all of this kind of stuff. So it was a lot for them to deal with as well.
And plus the fact, so your dad's over here as a labourer with you, and he's on his own effectively, isn't he?
Well, my dad at the time was working away as a labourer, so he came home, and unfortunately it was on my dad's 40th birthday that it also happened. To talk about coincidence.
Yeah.
And yeah, and he had to basically give up working away, which was paying, I'm guessing, a lot better than what working in Liverpool was, and re-establish his kind of contact back in Liverpool, so
Right.
that they could be at home with me. So it's a lot of upheaval.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is that there's lots behind that. I mean, I know what we've been talking 5 minutes or so, and from where you were then to where you are now, it's totally different. And at that time, that must have been really tough for you as a young girl as well. So then fast forward to age 19, and you've joined the cadets. Then what's the thinking behind then? What do you want to do next, and what gives you the inspiration?
Well, you know what? I wasn't bad at school, so I got the grades and could have gone to uni. But I didn't want to go to university. It wasn't for me. And also, I didn't really think I was clever enough, if I'm honest, looking back. So even though I was getting the grades, I didn't feel that I was clever enough to go to uni. And there's nothing that really struck out for me. So I loved being in the cadets. I literally spent most of my time in there. If I could get onto any of the weekend camps, I'd be there. If any of the
Yeah,
evening, any additional stuff. So, and you know what? And looking back, I was running away from the stuff at home. I was running away
yeah,
from the bereavement. I was running away from all that. But it gave me a sense of family, a sense of fun, a sense of so I say discipline, but not in that harsh, discipline, just routine. And then one of the adult instructors was they call them APs, and I didn't really understand what they did, but he was in the Royal Artillery, if I remember rightly. But at some point, he did a stint kind of attached to the military police.
right.
Um,
Okay.
and when we were talking about, I was like, well, okay, I'm going to join the army. Initially, I was going to join the army as an officer, which is why I stayed and did my A levels. But
Yeah.
then some toffee officer told me, basically said my eyesight wasn't good enough. But I'm thinking this accent wasn't good enough. I don't think my eyesight had anything to do with it. You
Right.
know what I mean? Because
Okay.
my eyesight was good enough to get me in the army. I don't know why it wouldn't have been good enough for me to be an officer. Do you know what I mean? But you think, was it the mid 90s? So
Right.
I'm
Okay.
guessing it's all about this, and this wasn't going anywhere, and it still hasn't.
No.
So yeah, that adult instructor was like, do you know what? You want to join the military police? And I was like, "Mm." And at the time, I was a little bit, I was very shut off and a little bit of a hard ass, if you were to put it that way. I thought I
Yeah.
was tough as nails, but tough on the outside, big softy in the middle, but you never got into the middle. And I thought, okay, let's go to the military police, and let's get paid to be a bitch.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I remember my experience with military police, and I actually, I remember when I was in Germany, I wanted to be arrested by the military police
Okay.
because because we were having a bit of a laugh after we come out of a nightclub, and we were just running down the high street with some wheelie bins.
Yeah.
And, it was harmless. We weren't robbing anyone or doing anything like that. But the German police got us, right?
Oh.
And they were going to give us a hard time. And I just said, military police, please.
Yeah.
And you got, okay. And they did give us a bit of a down the banks. And I had to go and speak to the Sergeant Major on Monday morning. It was a lot better than an armed police in the Germans was going to treat us. So, yeah, I mean, there's a good and bad in the military police. And at the end of the day, you got a job to do. And you were being paid to be a what? To be a
Well, no,
bitch.
that's what it's hilarious though, because that's what my idea was. Because I was this cocky little 19-year-old. Yeah, come on, let's go join the army. I'll get paid to be a bitch. And do you know what? I was absolutely the opposite.
Well, yeah,
Um,
right.
and it took. So I did it nearly 8 years, and it took me 7 years to make my first arrest, and not because I was avoiding them, but because I had other ways of dealing with them. It's like on a
Yeah.
Friday night where the guys were a bit pissed up. Do you know what? I look at them and go, it's not like I don't get drunk, is it? So I'd have the what they used to call the battle bus, the big bus with the cage in the back.
Yeah.
And before any fighting would start, I'd just be like, come on, get in the back. I'm going to drive you. I'm going to drive you back. I won't, and like, oh, don't, not to the guard. No, I won't drop you in the guard room unless you're a bit of a tit. And then you get a bit of gobby, and if someone got a bit gobby or call me a name or abuse me of any time, they get dropped outside the guard room because obviously you know what happened. I didn't even have to open my mouth. The corporals in the guard room like, "What are you doing? Getting out there?" So I'd be like, whereas if they were decent and they just took the lift, I'd drop them around the corner, off they go, no rest needed, no mounds of paperwork. What's the point? And also, why wait for the trouble to start? So as I say, I wasn't a bitch, and I was more interested in why people were doing what they were doing, and a lot of people were doing things wrong because of welfare reasons. So people going AWOL because their girlfriend had a miscarriage.
Yeah.
People stealing things because they had to pay for something for their family, and I'm not saying it's right, but there's always something underlying as to why they were doing what they were doing, and it wasn't just because they were arses.
And that's interesting because when I work with clients about money issues and stuff, whether it's to invest a lot of money or actually I'm just giving someone a bit of coaching on how come you've got like this. Everything happens because of a set of circumstances, a consequence of, and it's great that you were able to look at that and learn a lot. I suppose being in a position of the military police where you see a lot of stuff, right? Because there's all sorts of stuff going on in soldiers' lives, and RAF and Navy, whether that be male or female. And that's an interesting dynamic, which you probably would have seen, male and female, and how that chemistry works together. So you 7 years to make your first arrest. So I don't suppose you were getting promoted because of that statistic, were you?
Oh no, do you know what? And I didn't care, but it was it was the funniest arrest I've ever made, if I'm honest.
What sure
it was like I got them all in my last set of shifts. And this one in particular was a female corporal. I was on the camera phones on duty. Female corporal, and all it is right. You best come and arrest me. I've just assaulted the chief clerk, and if you don't come and get me, I'm gonna finish him off. And I was thinking, you lot know that this is my last set of shifts. Are you winding me up? And it's like, no, seriously. And and to be fair, went down, and this guy was a bit of an arse. And he'd been, where someone just pick, and he'd been like that at her for ages, and she just lost her rag and threw herself over his desk, grabbed him by the neck, and tried to throttle him. The only thing, and we had to arrest her because she assaulted him, and also it was on the top corridor, so all of the heads of sheds, the colonel, everyone was there and witnessed it. So. You know what? From my first arrest, that wasn't a bad one.
Out of interest, was she banged to rights, or did he press charges?
She was banged to rights when I picked up the phone. She went, "Look, I've just assaulted this guy. Come and get him before I finish him off." I was like, and again, it was one of those we don't, within the military, you don't decide whether someone's guilty or they're not. You just have to collect the evidence. Part of me wishes, even though she was banged to rights, that she could, it's not right to assault anyone. But it sounds like he deserved something, maybe. But again, that's back in the early 2000s when, some people did treat girls and women awfully, and it sounded very much like this was the kind of dynamic that they had.
Well, and the thing is that I remember when I was in the NAFI way back, even before you joined, and we shared a camp, 17 Squadron. A lot of them were female drivers, Women's Royal Army Corps RACs, and this particular girl, she was tough as nails. We were in the NAFI, and these two blokes who were visiting from another unit came in and started to give her grief. And I just thought, you don't want to do that, fellas. You shouldn't do that. And I'm just sitting there watching, gazing over the top of my pint glass. Whoa! And she throttled him. She gave him down the pint. And I just thought, well, yeah, there you go. And it's good to see that, not violence, of course, but it's good to see that women can hold their own and actually, because there's no place for it. And we chatted as well, and we'll come on to it, but now about how things moved on. So after the military police, and if there's anything else you want to share about the military police and it comes into your mind, we can do that. But then you moved on to your next posting and your next step on your journey to doing what you do now. So what happened then after
Yeah,
the military?
I retraded to the Army Welfare Service, and and interesting enough, whilst the organisation had been there since 1996, not a lot of people knew what it did when I applied in 2003 it was, and so not a lot of people knew what they did. And in all fairness, it was still a mystery for a while as to what the Armed Welfare Service did. I think because with stuff like that, people don't know what it does until they need it. I think that's the same with any kind of supporting agency. So the Armed Welfare Service is a part of the Adjutant General Corps. And it's a combination of civilian civil servants and military welfare workers from sergeant up to the one. And the purpose of it is to provide social and occupational welfare service to the army predominantly, but they also work tri-service. So depending on where you are, could be with Army, Navy, Royal Marines.
Mm.
So yeah, I spent the majority of my 22 years regular service, because obviously I'm still a reservist now and I'm attached to the Armed Welfare Service. So the rest of my regular service, about 14 years, was spent basically becoming a subject matter expert for welfare in the military.
And what sort of stuff? Because did you come across? Because when I was in, and it was introduced towards the end of my reservist territorial army. So we never got that sort of stuff when I was in. It was just stiff upper lip and off you go and deal with it. So what sort of things did you come across? Because I would imagine that you were dealing with all sorts of situations.
Everything and anything that was a problem, and it's whether that be domestic abuse, child protection, relationship issues, bereavements, stress and anxiety, low level kind of mental health stuff. I even spent 18 months, obviously I live up near Birmingham now, but I spent 18 months up at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital supporting the families and the service personnel when they come back from Iraq. So the families living up in Norton House and stuff, and supporting them and just making sure they didn't fall through the net. So acting as continuity for a lot of the kind of stuff. I think a big part of our job was acting as the bridge between the military world and the civilian world when it came to civilian organisations such as social services. So ensuring that social care understood the military and the military understood social care for when those kind of things were needed. We do all kinds of stuff, advice on parenting skills, on kind of communication. Yeah, it could be, if you've got a problem with anything, just come and see me and we'll see what we'll do.
Well, so you're pretty much the Swiss Army knife of psychological welfare then for military personnel. And,
Yeah.
and that reached out to the children and the wives or husbands of those in the military as well, didn't it?
Yeah, we're in the army, we weren't dealing directly with the children, but you work with the children through the parents. In the Navy, the naval equivalent, they work with children. But yeah, we'd work directly with any of the adults. But it is, I suppose, there's no civilian equivalent to what we did. It was, it's a bit like counselor, mentor, coach, social worker, all of those skills wrapped up into one. Where, as I say, there's absolutely no civilian equivalent to it, and sometimes it might just be going for a chat and a coffee just to kind of, because hasn't got that facility to do it.
And what sort of training did you get for that? Did the training develop as the service developed?
But well, actually, it was quite well developed by the time I got across. So the initial training, because it's all done by selection, so you have to go through a fairly rigorous selection, and then if you if you were lucky enough to get through, most people didn't get through first or second time. You'd then go on a 6-month residential, and almost a bit like a first year of a social work degree chucked into it, where you do think it's about I did do about 2 or 3 months in the classroom, learning all about kind of, theories of about, well, human behavior, people, attachment theory, all of those kind of things.
Hey, do you enjoy sipping a good glass of wine? As you know, sipping too much wine can leave you feeling groggy in the mornings. For less than the price of a good bottle of wine, you can gain access to valuable business and life resources gained from my over 37 years in business and 15 years in the military. These world-class resources are designed to help you achieve the goals, dreams, and aspirations you deserve. So visit joelteams.com now to find out more. That's JOETEAMS.com to find out more.
And then you go out and you do, I'm sure it was again about a 3-month placement where you'd be out there on the job doing it. And then you just
Right.
come maybe a week of consolidation. But then onward going. I've got to say now, the CPD was second to none. The amount of, and at some point I was the training officer, warrant officer for
Right.
the organisations before I left. And looking at the kind of, at the time, the money that was invested in us, unfortunately that money isn't there anymore. But some of the courses that I've done, some of the skills that I've gained, just through CPD, second to none. I can't, even, and you'll know, obviously I did a mental health nursing degree when I left. And actually I'd put the training I did in the army above the academic or above the university course that I did when I left, because I feel so lucky to have had those opportunities.
And that's an interesting word you use, lucky, because I have my own take on being lucky. Because what I use and is LUC stands for labour under correct knowledge. Labour under correct knowledge, because I certainly think that you can be fortunate and you can be in the right place at the right time. You can also be in the right place at the wrong time. And you'll know that of being a monkey, a military police, that people often get caught in the right
Definitely
place,
the wrong place at the wrong time.
So, so that's interesting, because I suppose, reflecting on it, the life in the military is like a microscopic look at life in all sorts of civilian situations, because you get a lot in the military, don't you?
Yeah.
You get violence, which actually is, in the strictest sense of the word, is what we're trained to do. Yeah. And then how that can present itself outside of a combat zone, where that sort of mental agility is lost and you're not able to deal with things and you just get trapped. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think also, interestingly enough, and again, it's that civilian view that, oh, it's okay, domestic abuse happens all the time in the army and violence happens all the time in the army or the military, because that's what they're trained to do. And actually, that's not an appropriate response either. Because if you think about it, military personnel, yes, they're trained to be violent, but they're also trained to not be. You think, well, especially a lot of the more modern conflicts, a lot of them have been going in and not always peacekeeping, but learning that emotional intelligence, learning that violence doesn't always lead to the answer that you want.
No.
So actually, when you start looking at things such as domestic abuse and stuff like that, actually that's got nothing to do with people's military training. That's got to do with power and control, and that comes for people before they'll come to the military with that kind of behavior and beliefs. But also when people go, so when people are psychologically damaged, and they're not picked up by the right psychological services, and if they're prone to violence, of course that's gonna be an indication that there's something not right.
Yeah, and it's like being able to control the on-off switch.
Yeah, because you think about it, and I get the amount of times I hear, oh, but he's a good sergeant or he's a good staff sergeant, but it's like, I need to go to anger management, and I say I use he because that's stereotypically, but it could be she. But actually, they don't need to go to anger management, because are they going into work and knocking out the RSM? No, they're not. So
No.
actually, they can control their anger. They can control their violence. It's something different when it comes to domestic abuse,
Yeah.
and they could control, and it's that power and control over their partner. And again, that could be male or female. It could be same-sex relationships. It doesn't have to be done in a stereotypical heterosexual relationship.
Yeah, because it's interesting. I always, as I grew older in the military, I was able to observe people's behaviour much more objectively,
Yeah.
and look and see what was going on. And it's interesting how different people deal with the same situation,
Yeah,
in different ways.
absolutely.
Yeah. So the violence, I suppose, it's controlled by, or it's control violence that you or you're taught mechanisms, ways of dealing with the situation, which may or may not include a weapon or some form of item that can cause harm. It's how you perceive that and how you use it, isn't it?
But my civilian friends, and they laugh because one of them introduces me as the train killer. Whenever she's saying, "Oh, this is Lou, she's a train killer," I'm like, oh, technically yes, but no.
Yeah. And I mean, I would much rather use dialogue to solve an issue. You only need to look around the world at the minute without honing in on one particular place. The fact is that there's lots of stuff going on that could just be solved by having a cup of tea and a biscuit.
Hopefully, yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
and understanding each other, I think.
yeah.
And that curiosity to find out about other people and other ways, and doesn't mean that you need to kind of back down and go, "Oh, you're right," or whatever. But I do, and again, I think if I look at the successfulness between kind of the male and the female military police people in not arresting people or in dealing with situations, the women, the female, we'd always not talk people, we would talk people down. And not because we were scared of conflict, because it doesn't need to go that way.
No.
It's the de-escalation skills that I saw a lot more from my female counterparts than my male counterparts, because ego was getting in the way. That whole "come on then, come and get me" kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then that's going to wind up someone, because it's wind me up. So, and I think that works. And then that's why so many transferable skills into the welfare world. Because when people come in, they're ranting, raving, crying, they're emotional, because whatever's going on for them is really impacting on them. And again, if I took all of that personally, or you're getting angry and you're shouting, actually, you're not shouting at me. You're shouting at the situation. So I'm just going to sit here and let you. And I'm going to let you do what you need to do. And then once you've done that, we'll then start looking at what the solution is, or what the problem is, or whatever. And I think sometimes it's about letting people feel what they feel, and also letting them do it in a safe space. De-escalation skills, you can't, you absolutely can't. They become soft skills, don't they? And they are absolutely not soft at all.
No. And I remember there was an investigation in my camp. I was only about 19, 20 at the time in Osnabrück, and we had a male and female come in investigating from the SIB, which is, I suppose, is the military version of this CID, and it was like good cop, bad cop, and the fella was really sort of stern, the alpha male. The female was really clever, and she got to the bottom. Her interrogation skills weren't interrogation, although they were. And they got to the bottom of it, because there was some thieving going on, which is a bad thing in your own unit. But they got to the bottom of it. So it was good to see the different dynamics, and I'm sure that continues now. So what was the most no names, no pack drill? What was the most challenging time in your army welfare career?
Um,
Was it a period of time or a particular case or that sticks in your mind?
I think, oh, excuse me. I think for me, the most challenging time I was having was I unfortunately had I'd call her a sociopath if I'm honest. Sorry, a supervisor, so a civilian supervisor who didn't understand the army, didn't understand army welfare workers, and this was, I think I've been in 11, 12 years by now, so you know I knew my job forwards, backwards, backwards, and forwards.
Yeah.
And I think that for me that was more mentally challenging because it was almost like she gaslighted me all the time
Right.
because she was the social worker with the degree and all of this kind of stuff, and I was the team manager at the time, doing what team managers when I first joined could do, but she wouldn't let that happen. You know, so it was like I was a warrant officer and she wouldn't let me be a warrant officer.
Right.
And again at the time, and you know, and sometimes it was a little bit political within that organisation because of the mix of civilians and
Mm.
the hierarchy being a lot of civilian kind of social workers and stuff and that, and so, and she had a great way of twisting what I was doing and almost, I suppose, isolating you. But I think the one thing that she didn't take into account was we all spoke to each other. So,
Yeah.
you know, as fellow kind of team managers, as fellow warrant officers, we get on the phone and we'd have a conversation. And again, you know, I'm a big girl, and if one of my kind of, I say my mates because they're my mates, if
Yeah.
one of my mates would have said, Lou, no, actually it's you, and you need to think about da 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 da, you know, I go okay. Whereas they were like, nah, she's doing it to me as well. But it was that kind of, we couldn't prove it
Right.
and stuff. So it's that, you know, so whilst that was a challenging time, and actually it was one of the challenges that led me to leave at the 22-year point. I did have an extra 2 years if I wanted them.
Right.
But I knew I could leave at the 22-year with my pension, and I was like, right, I can't be doing with this. You know, my mental health is worth more than this.
Yeah.
And I'm done, and I've got my pension, so thanks very much. People are either gonna respect me as the experienced manager that I am, or you know, or I can't really deal with it. So it was really tricky. You know, at the time, I'll be honest, I ended up having to go to therapy just to you know, a lot of work related stress
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And whilst it led me to leaving, actually, it was probably the best thing that needed to happen. So leaving was the best thing and I needed to do it.
Mm.
Just don't know if I would have kind of done it at 22 or 24, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So as I say, and yeah, it's hard to kind of quantify how bad that time was. But I hated the army when I left, hated it,
Mm.
and swore I'd never go anywhere near it again. I thought, well, I'll join the reserves because it'll give me some extra pocket money whilst I'm studying and all that kind of stuff. And you know, 5 years on, that hate is gone, which is nice, and I'm in
Right.
a good place with it.
Hey, do you enjoy sipping a good glass of wine? As you know, sipping too much wine can leave you feeling groggy in the mornings. For less than the price of a good bottle of wine, you can gain access to valuable business and life resources gained from my over 37 years in business and 15 years in the military. These world class resources are designed to help you achieve the goals, dreams, and aspirations you deserve. So visit joelteams.com now to find out more. That's JOETEAMS.com to find out more. Thank you for sharing that. And that's interesting that you ended your career because of something, an outside source that wasn't in the army. And what I get there is what the message I get there is, look, if you're in a situation, whether you're in a civilian job or the army, navy, air force, if it's not working for you, then maybe you got to change something. That's what I'm getting.
Do you know what? Absolutely, I can't tell you how many times I've had that conversation with people in my life, full stop. But especially as a welfare worker, you know, because for a lot of people who were coming in, it was like, but you're choosing to be here. Oh, but I can't leave the army. Well, you can. You're a
Yeah,
volunteer. None of us are conscripts.
yeah, yeah,
And I'm trying to remember people and say the amount of times I'd had that conversation, and it was almost like putting my money where my mouth was. And it was just like, and and I'd do it again. If something is that bad that it's affecting every aspect of your life, actually it's time to look at doing something different, whether that be work, relationship, friendships, whatever it might be. Yeah, and it's hard to make that change, and I was lucky enough that I was in the position, but I put up with that for about 4 years before I was in a position, before I was in a position, because it was a year to sign off, before I was in a position to sign off, so, and I still had to put up with it for the year afterwards, if you know what I mean, till I signed off. But I do think, because the only thing that we can change, and you'll know this yourself from the coaching, is we can only change ourselves. We can't change anyone else. And so why put up with a situation that's crushing, that, and it is and absolutely crushing your life? It might mean that you've got to stay in the situation a little bit longer until you find somewhere else to go.
yeah.
But make a plan.
And that's interesting as well, because that's something that I totally believe in. Situations go on, external situations, and you have no control over that. The only control you've got is how you react to it, isn't it? And so you've made this massive change now, and you just thought, right, okay, I'm going to do one. And which is, and to civilians who are listening, it's always made me chuckle, unless you get an immediate dismissal, and even then it would be a visit to Colchester first, probably, which you'd know about, not from personal experience.
Colchester's the best place to go for your resettlement.
Well, actually, I would
Absolutely
imagine
is.
Colchester is a great place to get.
Not a good place to go, though, let me just say.
Sorry?
It's like, no kids, don't go to Colchester. It's not. But actually, the resettlement that people get when they're leaving, whilst they're going through their sentence, is phenomenal.
Yeah, because the army's got a lot of money to spend on training. Well, maybe not as much as it used to, but it certainly does do good training. And so the fact is that you've got to give a year's notice. That always makes me chuckle. People think, oh, I've got to give 3 months' notice. That's a long time. Have a go at a year's notice, because your promotion is going to stop. You'll get treated differently. Well, I found that I did. Not in a particularly nasty way. I didn't get any of the Gucci jobs. I didn't get any of the good jobs. I got the other stuff, I suppose. But I was pretty good at what I did, so I still got good jobs. But the fact is that I know some people who weren't as fortunate did get sidelined. So
why waste time on someone that's leaving? I get it. It's not right, but I get it.
Yeah, and so you jumped ship. How did you find the transition?
I think I took advantage of everything that was offered. Because I was going to uni, I didn't really feel like I needed that much support finding jobs, doing courses. I've got qualifications as long as my arm. So it's like, and I'm going to uni anyway, and I'm going to become a mental health nurse, and this is what I'm going to do. So I was all sorted with that. I did sign off before I left the military police, and actually I got the transition had developed a lot since then. It was literally, when you do the career transition back, when it was like 2002 or something, it was literally girls became beauticians and hairdressers, and boys became that's what that was set up for. Whereas when I did it this time, it was more set up for people to be able to just look, and I think it was more looking at skills and actually helping you unpick what strengths you had, what you were interested in, and then maybe direct you down the kind of jobs that you'd be more suited for. And then linking you in if you wanted to, with kind of support with getting jobs, and you'd have that for 2 years and stuff like that. But again, that was fairly wasted on me because I'd gone to university.
Yeah.
But if I'm honest, my difficulty with transitioning didn't come until about 2 years, well, about halfway through my degree. So
Right.
almost, 18 months, 2 years after leaving. And it wasn't, the transition wasn't difficult because, excuse me, because jobs and housing and stuff, for me, it was more about the psychological bit. So it was the identity. I didn't actually know who I was. I wasn't sure how to, and people ask you, who are you? What do you do? I wasn't sure how to even introduce myself anymore. But a lot of that was due to overload. I'd literally started a degree and never took a day off, which wasn't good. And it was like, well, am I a veteran? I don't even know who Lou was before becoming a soldier. I used to be in the army. Am I still in the army? I'm a reservist. Am I a student nurse? Am I? And that for me that was the kind of that was when the struggle came in. But it was almost too late to get any support from the military because the support lasts for 2 years. But again, I didn't need any support getting a job. I needed a bit of coaching, really, or so. And that, from what I understand, and it wasn't there when I was going through, and I don't think it is now. That's the bit that was missing for me, was just that little bit of coaching to help me find out who I was now. And I was lucky enough that I've got one of my old staff members, a civil servant, left the MOD and is now a kind of, I suppose, a life coach, if you want to call them that. And I was lucky that I went and got some coaching from him, actually, and it really, really helped me.
Oh, brilliant. Well done. Well, and that's so important, isn't it, to get the support that you need at the time.
Yeah.
Because what I found is that people often become their own biggest problem creator.
Absolutely. And I do you know what? I'm the biggest one of that.
Yeah. I think we all are at some stage in our lives, because stuff happens, and when it happens, you can either deal with it, or maybe you don't feel you've got the ability to deal with it just at that time. So, how do you deal with failure now?
It's interesting because back in the day, I was being crushed by failure, and that was a big fear for me going through the army. Was I've got to be perfect. I've got to do this because I can't fail, and fail was a word that I just wouldn't even have in my vocabulary, because there's such a big fear around it. Whereas now, and especially since, and I've been a coach now for about 9-10 years, and almost kind of going on that journey yourself. It's like they say, was it first attempt in learning, isn't it? So actually, I don't use the word fail. I just look as it's a case. Okay, do you know what? I tried that didn't work. Let's try it something else, or let's try it but a different way. But it's that, and it's that good old thing is, if you keep doing what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. And it's remembering that and go, well, if I keep trying the same way, I am gonna fail, for want of a better word. But I think for me, having dropped the need to be perfect, actually, I don't fear failure anymore. I just see it as to learn an opportunity. You look at job applications and interviews. I remember my first ones going, really scared. And what if I don't get it? And I'll be homeless. I'll be this, I'll be that, I'll be all that. And now it's like, do you know what? Let's put the application in, see what happens. If I get through to interview, brilliant. Let's do the interview, see what happens. If I don't get it, I'll learn from it. If I do get it, brilliant. And then make a decision, do I want the job? And so, but for me, it was about overcoming that I need to be perfect.
And of course, the other way of looking at it is failure is the feedback of champions.
Yeah.
And I've failed a few times, in fact, quite a few times, and it's from the lessons that I've learned. It's enabled me to do things differently and better next time. And I suppose it's what it all boils down to is getting to your target in the end, really.
Well, they say you don't learn out in your comfort zone, do you?
Yeah,
So
no,
actually, you've got to put yourself out there, and that might mean that you fall on your ass. But like when you were a child, you never thought, "Oh, I'm down here, I'm never getting up." You're like,
yeah,
"No, get back up
exactly.
again," and just keep taking those steps forward, even if they're tiny little steps,
Yeah,
rather than go backwards.
exactly. And I know, so from what you say, I've picked up that you've made quite a few good friends along the way, and now you also are building your network. How important do you think having a good social and business network is to enable you to get to where you want to be in life and business?
I think, do you know what? I think you can't do it by yourself, and that's the one thing that I've learned, and I think the military helps you to learn that, because sometimes it isn't what you know, it's who you know. And
Mm,
that's not about, oh, you get into positions that you shouldn't be in, you get promoted or whatever because you got a mate. It's actually like, even now, if something comes up in work or at home, and I'll be like, oh, do you know what? I know someone who can help me with that, or who can just give me a little bit of a steer. Or if they can't, they can point me in the right direction. And you just reach out rather than floundering and I think and I'm now starting to learn the benefits of it in business, because my little part-time business has been a side hustle for a number of years, but I want to move it into full time. And that's how we kind of connected, isn't it?
yeah,
I'm now learning the benefits of a business network and support that way. But it's yeah, I think you can't really put into words how valuable having good. You've got to make sure it's good
yeah,
support, because you can get drawn down to, oh, pay me thousands of pounds and I'll sort this out for you, or I'll do this for you, and they won't.
yeah.
So it's good. It's having good people around you.
And that's a very good point, actually. I know that I've spent a lot of money on the training that I've done, and some of it, using the old term, I've kissed a few frogs. I know that there are people who, especially to guys who are coming out to the military, male and female, they get promised these empty words, really, to say, "Oh, well, you pay this and we can do that and we'll train you." And a lot of the time, it doesn't happen
No.
that way. And they might do a few hours training, but then after that, there's no ongoing support. And that's why, as you mentioned, we met at the business network that I set up, is because I believe that network is great. And if it's the old adage, like, if you had a problem in the army, it wasn't a problem after you told your mate, because everyone knew, and it was a problem shared, a problem halved, or it was less than half, because
Yeah.
everybody knew. And they come up and say, what's the issue, mate? Come on, let's sort it out. And then it was just sorted, and that's what having the network is all about in my eyes. So, having a good coach or mentor, you've already touched on that. I mean, how important has that been in your life, and how important has it been to people you help now?
Well, for me, throughout my life, once I kind of got my head around it, because I was too proud to reach out for help. I
Yeah,
was too proud to accept it, because again, it's that military, it's the old military thing of, if I tell you I'm struggling, then you'll see me as weak, which means then I'm not good at my job, I'm not going to get promoted, all of these kind of things. And it's one of those things that actually, from what I've seen with people and people that I helped in the military, is actually you come back stronger.
yeah,
So actually, once I got over myself and got through that, coaching is vitally important for me, whether that be health coaching, coaching around my career, or anything, because it's getting it out of your head, it's talking to someone else, and it's not about, because coaching and mentoring is very different, as you know.
yeah,
So it's
yeah,
not
yeah.
mentoring, it's not being told how to do something, it's exploring how you as an individual can do it, looking at your
Mm,
strengths,
yeah,
looking at what you've got already, and then maybe if the stuff that you've identified that you need to get,
yeah,
find out the right way of doing that, and being held accountable as well. And again, not in the dogmatic, oh, you haven't done this, no, just okay, so you haven't done that, what was it, what happened, what's changed.
yeah.
And that's for me, and I think it's the same for the people that I work with, because I use my coaching skills all the time in my day job. you know, and sometimes, and for me, it's about psychological safety. It's having that safe set. It's not, you know, it's not about therapy or anything like that, but it's also quite therapeutic. But it's having that safe space to be able to go, this is who I am, this is what I want to do, or these are what my goals are, or actually I don't even have a clue what I want to do. And then having someone just hold you safely and work it through and not judge and not go, oh, you should be doing that, or I can't believe you did that, or any of that. And then and then going, okay, so you said you want to do this, let's kind of hold you accountable. So you know, almost having someone to
Yeah.
check back in with. And you know, and the people I work with, I think they like the fact that they can tell me anything and nothing's going to shock me, especially after all of the kind of different stuff I've done in my life.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not going to run away, but I'm also I'm quite straight talking.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you need to be told something, I'm going to tell you it in the nicest possible way, because again, sometimes we get in our own way, don't we?
Yeah.
Um, and people going, oh yeah, oh, that's a brilliant idea. And I go, is it really? Is that
Yeah.
realistic? Having and just checking that out and to allow people to have clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember, because because I picked up on what you said there. There's a difference between coaching and mentoring, which there is
Yeah.
clearly, and some people get it mixed up. I did a piece on it. I wrote an article, and I also did a video blog on it about the difference. And I used the football analogy because a lot of people like football. And I looked at Kenny Dalglish and Alex Ferguson, and Alex Ferguson was a great coach, right, and the manager of players. Kenny Dalglish was a great coach and mentor. And what was the difference? Well, Kenny Dalglish could do both, i.e., coach someone how to do it, but he understood how to do it as well because he was a great footballer and he was a great coach. Alex Ferguson wasn't so great at footballing. He was all right, but he was a blinking good coach. I mean, he's got to go down as one of the best coaches ever in the world. And so that's the difference between, like, the coach may have read about it, studied about it. The mentor has actually walked it. So if you want to get a really good mentor in your chosen profession, get someone who's done it well. But you can also have a good coach who's maybe not done it, but they just know the rudiments of business, and it's the rudiments of your mind that gets you there, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think sometimes actually not knowing about someone's situation means that I'm going to ask questions.
Yeah.
Actually, they might, you know, and these, and you know what it's like when you've been doing a job for a while, and then you start, and someone asks you a question that's like a Billy Basic question. You go, oh, so why do I do that?
Yeah. Do you like coffee? A lot of people tend to spend money on expensive coffees from outlets without even thinking about it. Well, for the price of just 2 coffees per month, you can gain access to valuable business and life resources gained from my over 37 years in business and 15 years in the military. These world-class resources are designed to help you achieve the goals, dreams, and aspirations you deserve. So visit joeteams.com now to find out more. That's JOETEAMS.com to find out more.
Why do we do that? Or why is that the system? Or why is, and then they start unpicking that. Whereas, you know, again, I think sometimes when you know a lot about what people do, you just go, oh yeah, yeah, get that. And then you ask a different question and you wouldn't actually go back to the basics. I think that can really help people sometimes as well. But I think that there's a benefit to all of it. It just depends on what people are looking for. And, you know, it's like I can mentor people in my old job because I know it's standing on my head. I think I'd rather coach them because again, it's not about me knowing it and me being there, but it gives you that little bit of empathy, I suppose, and that little bit of understanding.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I like with coaching, I like the fact that it's almost a blank slate, isn't it? And you're going, okay, and that playful curiosity, you know, just being curious about how that is for you, and also how can I support you in that? What is it that you need? Because some people might not need accountability. Some people might, you know, I've seen it. Some people go, Oh, right. And then they'll write it down. I need to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And you sit there going, oh, there's no need for me, is there? Because you're self-coaching. And that's, and that's kind of, that's a good place as far as I'm concerned. My job is for people not to need me.
Yeah, and it's the nanny McPhee, isn't it? When you need me and don't want me, I'll be here, and when you want me and don't need me, I'm off.
That's it. And I like that, because these are skills that that we should, people, I think everyone should learn coaching skills, and then and we could peer coach, not officially, unofficially in the workplace. And
And it's always interesting when people you see on the internet, or you get emails on how to make £10,000 a week, easy as that, dead easy, and it's just going to happen overnight. Well, it might do if you've just got something that's so exclusive and unbelievably good, and you've got a team around you. But if not, and you're starting on your own, well, maybe it's going to. I know that you can become financially free in about 7 years if you've got the right stuff. It's not going to happen overnight. So, in my opinion, unless you've got something that's just radical and goes viral. So it does take time. So if you're listening, and I'm sure you'll agree, won't you, Lou, that Rome wasn't built in a day.
No, and also don't fall foul of those people who are going to tell you that.
Yeah.
Because actually, they're making 10 grand a day because they're getting your money.
Yeah. So it's interesting and essential that you get help from the right sort of people. And talking about that, what is something that someone leaving the military or has already left the military, what is the one thing they should recognise about how transferable their skills are to Civvy Street?
Oh, do you know what? Military people are so underestimated and undervalued, but I think that's because we underestimate and undervalue ourselves. So I think, and some of the stuff that we take for granted, actually people need to be taught how to do it. Even as Billy Basics as answering the telephone correctly, or how, like just basic manners and just stuff like that, or even a presentation. Given presentations, we're taught right from day one, explain, demonstrate, imitate, practice. Oh yeah, that is such a skill in all kind of aspects. And it's those bits, and when I was doing my degree, I had poor students there, and kind of, and they'd have their notes, and they'd be stood there and they go, and giving a presentation because they've never been taught how to do it. And it's like, and so that even that, and I know most of the people leave the military go, what do you mean? Presentations, I'll stand up and talk to anyone, I'll do this, because that's what we've been taught right from day one. So it's about, and I think for me, it's about kind of, there's probably more than one. It's about making sure that you network, talk to get part of the veterans community, especially the business community, whether that be you going into business yourself or you're going to go and work, because actually the contacts out there are amazing and the support out there is amazing. And I think the veterans community has gone to the fact of, well, no one else is going to help us, so let's do it ourselves, and actually together we're stronger. So network within the veterans community. Don't just think because you're getting out, I'm going to cut the military off altogether, because I don't know anyone who has successfully done that anyway, because that's a whole transition piece, isn't it, in your head? So network, don't underestimate yourself, and actually speak to there's lots of experts out there that can help you transfer your military skills into civilian speak and have confidence. It's a little bit like on mine, I'm now a learning and development specialist. Am I? Well, yeah, because I was a training warrant officer for a couple of years and I've been delivering training and I've done all of that. But initially, for me to put that on my LinkedIn, I was like, oh, that feels really uncomfortable because I'm not. Like, yes, you are. So it's just those bits.
Right. and you've said it a few times. You're really lucky you are. So if I just summarize what we've talked about, right? So at the age of 2.5, yeah, the tragic loss of your brother, then your mother, your father came had to come across to Liverpool, and family life was tough. You joined the cadets. You didn't want to go uni, even though your qualifications were all right, because you had imposter syndrome and didn't think you were good enough. Then you went in the cadets. You thought, this is quids in. You spoke to an officer who said you're not really good enough, and your eyesight's not good enough. When maybe he was just saying, when you talk like a Scouser,
Yeah.
right? Which may be something that you might want to deal with, because I think I'm married to a Scouser. I think Scousers are nice, and you've only got a bit of a twang. I can recognise it. And then you joined anyway. You joined the military. You became military police, monkey, as they're lovingly known. Learned how to take the heat out of situations. Didn't make your first arrest until for 7 years, which is pretty a long time. But when you did make it, it was a good arrest. Everybody knew about it, all the hierarchy. You got out, transitioned, because you didn't like the civilian who was in charge. Now you've done all of that. You're in Civvy Street, went to uni, passed your mental health degree. Right. So what's the secret of your success? And I know, don't even go there saying I'm not successful. You might not be successful.
I am. Yeah.
What's the secret?
I'm owning my success now, whereas I wouldn't a couple of years ago. I think sheer determination and absolute, I start something and it has to finish, you know what I mean? And kind of that not giving up, that grit. That's, and also I think it's kind of being open-minded, just to learn. I'm constantly learning. Always learning about people, about things, about whatever. I've recently been diagnosed with adult ADHD, so that's probably a good bit of my success, because I've just been bouncing around the world doing everything. But yeah, I think a lot of it is just sheer determination, and a lot of that at the beginning was about being perfect. Now it's not. Now it's just about, actually things need to get done sometimes. And if there's things that don't need to get done, it's also dropping them as well. So not having to be everything to everyone, and kind of, and trying to be everything to me as a human being, and looking after myself, because then if I'm good, the people that I'm working with are good.
Yeah. And you just slotted that in a couple of words. You've just been diagnosed with adult ADHD. So how does that affect you, if it does? How does it affect you? And in a good way and a not so good way?
Because it's new. I think it's only come out because I was literally struggling to focus, and there's lots of stuff and all that kind of stuff, and don't even go there. Joys of menopause, all the rest of it. We could be. But if I look back, it's affected my ability to maintain friendships and relationships and stuff, and so a lot of people have fallen by the wayside. So that's the bad bit. But in the good bit, because there's a lot of they say attention deficit, whereas actually it's like an overactive attention. So I want to say, oh, I want to learn that. Oh, now I'm going to learn that. Now I'm going to learn that. Now I'm going to learn. And basically, so I've got a file this thick of certificates of courses that I've done, all that I use the skills for every day, but not individually, because I've just got, oh, that looks interesting, or you look interesting, tell me about you. And so I think, and energy, is kind of, we talked before this about the family activity breaks, charity work that I was doing for, I think it's about 9 years. And again, I hyper-focused on that because I believed in it's about bereaved military families, about bereaved military children. It's taking families or children to do outdoor activities, stuff that we did in the military to build their confidence, bring them back into the military bubble. And so you've got outdoors and bereavement, two of my enjoyable, and that sounds really weird about bereavement, but two places where I feel really, really comfortable. And I hyper-focused on that, and I worked my little butt off for all that time. And that a lot of that was ADHD, because I had a full-time job as well. I was running my side gig. I was doing something else. I had friends that I was doing all of this as well as that.
And that's commendable, and that's actually what you're MBE for, isn't it?
Yeah.
And to get an MBE is a massive achievement. So congratulations.
Yeah.
And that was all to do with this. So just touch on that a little bit more. What sort of stuff did you do?
So I started off as one of the first volunteers on the pilot project, and it was and the whole thing was organised at the time by one major, actually a monkey, and she was given the job of organising, and this is like kind of getting, recruiting volunteers, sorting out the camps, finding locations, sorting out the activities, interviewing volunteers, training volunteers. And so I kind of just thought, oh, well, I'll help you out for the next one. So I thought, love this. I'll be back here every year if I can. I'll help you out. So that helping out turned me into, I suppose, the equivalent of a volunteer coordinator. So I recruited volunteers, interviewed them, helped train them, booked the training kind of places, allocated the volunteers to the various camps because they're in different parts of the country. And say that was the bit that would be done outside the camp time. And then when the camps were on, they're about a week in length, I volunteered on the camps, either because we had like a bereavement support specialist there, so either doing that role or as the years went on, actually running the camp itself. So yeah, so as I said, I did, and I think, was it 7 or 8 years? I can't remember now.
That's
so
brilliant.
basically that I did that almost full time on top of my job and life and what have you.
And by the way, I'd like to, I know you've been coughing a few times. I would like to thank you for joining me this morning, because you've had COVID, haven't you? And that shows you're recovering from that, and you're still able to join me, which is fabulous. So on that, I'd like you to close with the Columbo question, if you like. What's the one tip you would give to someone who's coming out of the military, or a veteran who is already out of the military, maybe struggling, not sure what to do? What's the one tip you would give them to help them be successful?
Reach out for help. It's as clear cut as that. Don't keep it to yourself. Don't be proud. And it's never too late to reach out. Just reach out. There's going to be people who are going to help you.
Brilliant. Fabulous. And for you, what's next in your amazing journey?
Hopefully, full-time employment in my own training and coaching business. Again, slowly catch your monkey. But that's kind of where I want to go next.
Okay, thank you so much. Lou O'Connell, MBE, you're an absolute star. Thank you.
You're welcome, thanks.
JoeTeams.com is a resource I have created to fulfill my mission to help 1 million veterans and business entrepreneurs like you achieve the goals, dreams, and aspirations they deserve. JoeTeams.com is jam-packed full of valuable resources specifically designed to help you on your journey to success. Visit JoeTeams.com now to find out how you can join and start your journey to success immediately. That's JoeTeams.com, JoeTeams, JoeTeams.com. And until we meet again, have a brilliant day.